What is up, guys? My question to you is, if you started taking on water on your boat right now, would your bilge pumps be able to keep up? Would your bilge pumps actually be able to save your boat? So today we're going to talk about bilge pumps. We're going to talk about how to pick the right one for your boat, the limitations that they have, how to actually install them, and I'm going to show you how to build a backup emergency system like I've built that can save your life, and how it saved my boat last time I was out on the water. By the end of this video, you'll know if your bilge pump is actually protecting your investment or just giving you a false sense of security. So what exactly is a bilge pump? Well, this is a bilge pump right here. And what's a bilge? Well, this is a bilge. This area here in your boat. And they come in all different shapes and sizes and things. Many people think that this pump right here is meant to save your boat if it's sinking, and that's not actually what it's meant for. These pumps were made to get rid of water that comes off your deck and gets into the bilge, rainwater, wash down water, or small leaks, water that can come in from any which way and can get its way down to the bilge. It was never really meant to be able to take care of major hull breach or hull delamination or any type of hole in the boat. And that's where a lot of boaters get into trouble, because they think that that pump is going to save them when these things happen. They assume that if water gets in there, the pump will just pump it out, basically. All right, so let's go in and take a look at my bilge pump setup so you guys can see. So here's my 2,000 gallon per hour automatic bilge pump, which sounds pretty impressive. But here's what the manufacturers don't put in the giant letters on the front of the box, is that those 2,000 gallons per hour are under ideal conditions. No restrictions in the hose, no bends, no vertical lift, perfect battery voltage, perfect installation, and your boat has none of those things. Every foot of hose reduces efficiency, every bend reduces efficiency, every fitting, every bit of voltage drop reduces the efficiency of the pump. Meaning that your 2,000 gallon per hour pump may be moving substantially less water than you actually think. And that becomes a problem when water is actually entering your boat faster than you can pump out and remove it. So let's put this into perspective. Imagine that you have a broken through hole or a broken live well hose or some type of something that's cracked through. Water doesn't have to come in very fast before it gets serious. The question really isn't how big is my pump. The question is, can my pump out water faster than the water coming in the boat? So what size pump do I need? Well, that depends on the size of the boat that you have. That depends on how you're going to use the boat, if you're going to go offshore or not. And it really depends on how much redundancy you want on your boat. Space is a big issue. On this little boat, I don't have much space to put multiple pumps. Most manufacturers install pumps that are adequate, but adequate and ideal are not the same thing. If you're going to be spending time offshore, running offshore a lot, you're going to want that added protection. You want to think of it almost like insurance. You can never have too much of it when you need it. Let's talk about some of the mistakes that people make. So mistake number one, we're going to talk about the wiring. So when you're installing these pumps, you want adequate wiring. That's going to depend on the size of the run of the actual wire that goes to your either circuit breaker, your fuse block, your switches. I'm going to put up a chart up here so you guys get an idea of the correct size wire depending on how much your bilge pump is going to draw. For example, most bilge pumps are going to require somewhere between a 10 to 15 amp fuse. See, what I have on my boat is I use a 14 gauge wire for my bilge pump. That's what I use, a 14 gauge wire. You want to make sure that your connections are not corroded. You want to make sure that you have the right butt connectors, that they are heat shrunk, okay, that they don't have any corrosion on them. You want to check all of that. Number three is too many hose bends, all right? You don't want to make loops with your hose. You want it to be as straight as possible with as little bends as possible. That kills the efficiency of the water flow of the pump. It just makes the pump work harder. So I've routed this hose as straight as possible from the bilge pump straight over here with as little bends as possible, and it comes out through here. Realistically, this should be over here somewhere, only because I don't have a lot of freeboard here, and this is usually the lowest spot, and the water can creep up here really fast. And if the water gets past here, it's really pumping into going to be pushing against the actual ocean here, against the actual body of water. Before you go on your trip, you want to turn on your switch and hear that the bilge pump is working. If you have an automatic float switch like this, you want to flip it up and down and see if that's actually working before you go on your trip. And while you're doing that, you want to again check for corrosion and all those things at the same time. You never want to have to test the system when you actually need the system. Most people don't even check their bilge pumps for years, they just let it ride. So with that said, what do I recommend for your particular boat? Well, bigger is always going to be better. So this is a 16-foot flats boat, and on this boat I have a 2,000 gallon per hour pump, and that's as small as I would go personally on this boat. This boat is very small, so any water that comes in and gets into the bilge, this is not a self-bailing hole, so the water that gets on board goes straight to the bilge. So if I take a wave over the bow, for example, that water is going to go straight to the bilge, and the only way to get it out is with a bilge pump. A lot of boats have self-bailing decks. A lot of flats boats don't have that opportunity. So at a bare minimum, I recommend a 2,000 gallon per hour pump. And again, take into consideration all of the length of the hose and also the type of hose that you're going to use. Now, because I have a short run of maybe 4 feet or so, I've decided to use a more flexible corrugated tube. It just makes things a lot easier in setting it up. But anytime you have a tube like this that is corrugated, it loses a little bit of efficiency because of those ribs that you see there, and the water won't flow smoothly, so it doesn't work as good as a smooth style hole. You also see those plastic style hoses. That's even less efficient than these. So if you notice something about offshore boats, they usually have quite a few pumps because it's a big space, and they have more of a redundancy system. They usually have 1 or 2 pumps that sit low in the bilge, and then they usually have at least one bilge pump that sits higher in the bilge that's connected to what's called a high water alarm. And that lets you know that something's going wrong in the bilge. You've reached a point where the water's got so high that that secondary system is starting to work. And it could mean a couple of things: that you're taking on water faster than you think, or that your other pumps are not working. So that's definitely something that you might want to consider if you have a bigger boat or even on a smaller boat. Now, since we're talking about backups, and because I don't have much space in this bilge, I think I have space to put in a secondary pump. I do, but I've been pretty good with this one pump. I'm going to show you the backup pump that I've created for any type of emergency situation. And I think everybody should have something like this on their boat in case shit hits the fan. So this is my emergency setup right here. It is a 2,000 gallon per hour pump that has 15 feet of wire. This is 10 gauge wire, and it's connected to marine grade battery clips. That way, if anything happens, I could just put this in the bilge and I could connect this to my battery, and in a matter of 20 seconds I can have water pumping out. I also have this very stiff hose that'll hold itself up, sticking out of the bilge. And I already had to use something like this on this boat 2 weekends ago, where I thought I nearly sank my boat. And luckily my buddy had one of these systems, which is what inspired me to build it. So I'm going to show you how to build it real quick, and I think everybody should have one of these things. My bilge pump, I'll show you what I did to it. So I have this set up down here, so in case I need to just connect it to the battery right away, I can. The wire goes through here. I have that set up in the corner. The hose wraps around and it connects right to the through hole that I had before, so it's perfect. As you can see there, just cover that. Water usually doesn't come in here unless I slow down real quick. Look what actually burnt up the impeller of the bilge pump. Look right here, got twisted up in there and it burned it out. This is the junk that gets stuck in the mesh screens of your bilge pump. That's why you always gotta have a spare. You just never know. I'll start with the bag. These are I believe 3-gallon Ziploc bags. It's gonna keep all the stuff dry. and it's a place where I could store it, where if I'm going out on a buddy's boat, I can take it with me. I can take it on and off the boat. I can leave it on the boat, and I know it's not gonna, rust or corrode or anything like that because it's inside this bag. So basically, I got this idea from my buddy Gustavo, and in this video I'm gonna put up here, or the video that I've already shown you, he had created something very similar to this, and this one is kind of like for my boat. The length and stuff, that's going to depend on the boat that you have and how far away your bilge is from dumping water outside out into the ocean. So basically what I have is a couple tie wraps. These are easy just to open up and get off. I think maybe those straps, those Velcro straps, are probably a little bit better option. So we're gonna start with the pump, and this is a Sea Flow pump. This is a 2,000 gallon per hour pump right here. You could use whatever pump you want. You can use Rule. I bought this one because it's half the price of a Rule, and I actually used this. This is what I had on my boat when it went bad and it burned out. I mean, it worked pretty good up until I got fried, but it's been working for over a year now, and it's been perfectly fine. So I use this 2,000 gallon per hour pump, and you want to use something big. So 2,000 plus. This is in case of emergency where you got to get out water. Let's say your bilge pump is not working, or it's not pumping enough, not pumping sufficient. You want another hitter here to come in and pump that water out so you don't sink. So this hose that I have here is a non-corrugated hose. This is just a straight hose. So there's no corrugation inside the hose line. So this makes for a lot smoother of water flow. So you'll be able to pump out more water. So this particular one is about maybe 3-4 feet. I want to say it's like 3.5 feet, and that's enough for my little bilge. I only have maybe 1.5 feet before I'm actually dumping water out. And then what I did was I used a duplex wire, and this is a 10 gauge or 10 AUG wire right here, and I connected it straight to the pump. Normally on your boat, you would have some type of fuse in line. Now, I'm not worried about a fuse because I don't want to have to worry about a fuse in case of an emergency. And that's why I decided to go with a 10 AUG wire, because I know that will withstand a lot more than your regular 14. This is 15 feet of cable right here, 15 feet of wire. And the reason why I chose 15 is because if I have to maybe run this to the console, or if I have a battery up in front, or if your battery is maybe in the console versus in the bilge, then you want enough length where you can connect the battery, the actual clamps, to the actual battery. All right, so that's 15 feet of cable. I've connected it here with some regular heat shrink connector, as you can see here, and I've added heat shrink over the top of it as some more protection. And then at the end, what I've done is I've got these Atwood battery connectors here. These are very good. And let me show you what I did, because this piece slides out. If you could see there, it's hard. I know it might be hard to see, but there's a ring terminal there with heat shrink, and I connected that to this little nut and bolt there with a heat shrink, extra heat shrink over the top. And I've clamped these down to kind of hold the cable in. And then this slides over, just like this. Got both my clamps. I got enough space in between for any size battery, so 24 or 30, or a bigger group battery. I have them wide enough where I can hit, where I can grab both batteries, where I can grab both battery posts. This thing saved me when I was out there last time. Thankfully, my buddy had his set up ready to go, and hopefully you never have to use it. But it's real easy to do. There's really not much to it. This goes with me every time I go on the boat from now on. But this is something that you want to be able to deploy in a matter of literally seconds, not minutes, because you don't have time. You don't have time to be messing around. I take a wake over the boat and I have seconds to react. Let's talk about the cost for this thing real quick. So these batteries, let's start with the pump. The pump was $60. I'm gonna put all that in my Amazon store. I'm gonna have everything ready for you guys so you can check out up there. The pump was $60. This hose, I believe this hose was only a few bucks, and you can use corrugated, you can use those plastic hoses. I would recommend something like this that's stiffer, that it's going to hold its place. So this hose might be like 20 bucks or so. This cable, duplex cable, was 12 bucks. And these battery clamps here, these terminal clamps, were something like $7 or $8, I believe. So for under 100 bucks, you can have something that's going to save your life. So let's try this out. Let's go to the boat, and I'm going to put it to work, and we're going to do some tests with this stuff and see how much this actually can pump. And check that out. Nice and easy. Nice and protected. And it's ready to go at a moment's notice. All right, so I've gone ahead and turned my hose on, kind of simulating water in this bilge. Like if I have a crack in my hull. And we're gonna see how long and see if this pump can actually keep up with the water coming in. Let's see if that automatic bilge pump will start working and if it could keep up. That's a minute and a half. It's getting lower and lower and actually can keep up with the hose. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and simulate deploying the emergency bilge pump. So I'm gonna just play it through. I have it stowed away back here. So imagine I'm riding and I get the high water alarm. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Remember, every second counts. So we wanna be quick, but we don't wanna fall off the boat or anything like that, right? So we get the high water alarm, boom. I'm gonna turn around. I'm gonna take out the kit, and I got the timer going. Okay, I got my tube. I'm gonna stuff that down in the bilge, just like that. You could stick it in here. All right, I'm gonna come over here where my batteries are. I'm going straight to plugging those in, and that's going. So not too bad. Guys, this video was more of an awareness than anything else. I had a scary moment out in the water, and I would hate for you guys to have the same thing happen to you. So bilge pumps, if you have any stories like this that have happened to you, I'd like to hear them. Write them in the comments. And if you like this video and you found it helpful, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.